Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the afternoon session of Doing Ethnography Seminar Workshop in partnership with UGAT, the Anthropological Association of the Philippines. This morning, we had Module 3, the discussion on the indigenous people of the Philippines. For this afternoon, we are going to go straight to the discussion of Module 4 about village, community, and annual cycle. Allow me now to introduce to you our resource speaker for this afternoon. Cynthia N. Zayas is a board member of UGAT. She is a retired professor and currently professorial lecturer at the University of the Philippines Center for International Studies. She is a maritime anthropologist who specializes in indigenous local knowledge and cultures of disaster. Her field studies are in the Philippines and Japan. She was also former UPCIS director and former chair of Philippine Social Science Council. We have another resource speaker for Module 4, Maria R.V. B. Banyes, also a board member of UGAT. Maria R.V. is assistant professor at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, and a PhD candidate in development studies at the Ateneo de Davao University. Her research interests include artisanal fishing, women in fisheries, local ecological knowledge, and issues in qualitative educational research. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our two resource speakers for Module 4, Village, Community, and Annual Cycle, Cynthia Zayas and Maria R.V. Banyes.
I'm sharing. Wow, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Clear,
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am. Sure po.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. RV has graduated and she got her PhD already.
Yes, ma'am.
She's not a student anymore. She's a full-time PhD now. RV and I work in the coastal communities in the Philippines. I also work in the coastal communities in Japan and in North Borneo. And so I'll be sharing with you our work, our own field work, and our own publications. Before we start, we gusto naming makitabi-tabi dahil marami ditong mga litrato, mga larawan na mga katutubo o baka merong mga nakasamang hindi tulad natin dito sa images na ito. So, nakikiraan po kami at wala naman kaming masamang hangarin sa inyo, kundi matulungan kaming mapag-aralan kung sino ba kami at saan kami patutungo. Salamat po, Apo. I would like to congratulate Maria and Jesse for that wonderful lecture on the IPs. We will not deal too much with the IPs in this sense because it's the subtitle will be Doing Ethnography for Future Work on the IPs of Camarines Norte. Yes, we have very little information on the IPs of Camarines Norte, but IPs in general, it has been taken up in the previous lecture, from the previous lectures. The next is this is an important baseline information for all of us. Maybe RV can share this information.
Una sa lahat, importante itong datos na ipinapakita ng mapa kasi dito natin makikita na mas marami palang tubig na napalibot sa atin. Ang hirap ng magtagalog, no? Biglang, okay. nasanay na akong mag-Ilonggo. So, ang baybaying tubig natin ay 171,146 miles at ang lupain natin ay 15,830 square miles. Meron tayong exclusive economic zone na umaabot ng 691,233 square miles. So, anim na ulit ating...
Excuse me, RV.
Yes po.
Excuse me, RV. May echo. Nag-echo yung salita mo.
Sige po. Try to mute muna.
Now we cannot hear you. RV is now in the UP Visayas campus. Nawalan siya ng ilaw. So she had to travel to the UP campus just to get to lecture to us. Thanks, RV. Okay?
Sige po. I think wala na po akong echo.
I can still hear the echo.
Meron.
Can we ask Camarines Norte? What shall we do?
Opo, baka po may gadget na open, another gadget na open si Ma'am Arv.
Okay.
Maybe a cell phone or...
I'll try again. Wala na yatang echo.
Wala na po.
Wala na. Okay, let's go.
Thank you. And so, I think yung data na nakikita natin dito, ang ini-emphasize na mas napapalibutan tayo ng tubig at mahalaga na ang ating mga pag-aaral ay ituon natin sa coast, sa mga communities kung saan merong mga tubig. Sinasabi nga na bakit ang planning natin laging land use, no? Hindi natin naiisip na baka magandang magplano din tayo from the coastal communities. Sige po, Ma'am Chim.
Okay, so what we're trying to say here is we have more water area than land area. 6 times water area. So what we're trying to say is indigenous peoples are usually in the mountains, on the hillsides, or just in the periphery of metropolitan cities. But there are also other people, like what Maria said, remember? Yung mga Ivatan, hindi naman sila IP dati eh. Pagbalik ni Maria, naging IP na rin. Di ba? So, meron diyang mga communities na mga Bicolano na talagang nandun na rin, pero dahil pareho sila ng salita, hindi sila ma-differentiate. Anyway, the point is, we want to clarify something about the indigenous and the local knowledge and the local community. Ito yung in-emphasize namin, bakit yung local community? IPLC, can you look at here? Indigenous peoples and local communities. Meron silang ethnic groups who are descended from and identify with the original inhabitants of a given region. Itong local communities are groups who have settled, occupied, or colonized the area more recently. No? But it doesn't mean that they're not from there, because remember, we are a people who are very mobile. Archipelagic, island state, more water than land. Diba? The roads are not the barriers. The water is the superhighway that we have. So we are very mobile. We can make our own vehicles. We don't need to have cars. Pero marami diyang panday na mga bangka. Hindi ba? Anybody can have bangka so long as you are from the town. You can have some skills learned from parents or from previous generations. No? Now, why is it important that we don't only study the indigenous peoples that is defined by our law, but because we are indigenous too. However, we are just redefined. I want RB to read. This is an 1582 Relaciones by Miguel Lopez del Huarca. Could you please read?
So, ang sinasabi dito ay may dalawang uri ng tao sa lupaing ito na bagamat pareho ng lahi ay medyo nagkakaiba sa kanilang mga kostumbre at halos palagi ang hindi magkasundo. Isang uri ng naninirahan sa baybayin, ang isa pa ay naninirahan sa kabundukan. At kung parang may kapayapaan sa kanila dahil umaasa sila sa isa't isa para sa mga pangangailangan sa buhay. Di mabubuhay ang mga nasa bundok, ang isda, sin, at iba pang uri ng makakain, at mga banga at tigan at iba pa sa ibang. At gayon din, hindi mabubuhay ang naninirahan sa baybayin sa gas at bulak ng. Siguro Ma'am Chim, magandang tanungin natin sila ngayon. Meron ba tayong nakikita at na-observe sa ating mga communities na ay meron pala tayong laya or ilawod? Kasi ganito aming mga salita dito sa to describe yung mga taong nasa coast ay sinasabi natin, sila yung mga tagalawod. Pero pag nasa mas mataas na portion ka ng or sa mga bulubugin, sinasabi ng mga taga-ilaya sila or meron bang mga salita or terms or concepts na ginagamit tayo? Pwede siguro nating sagutin ang tanong through our chat box or kung sino yung mas gustong magsalita, pwedeng mag-unmute sa ating.
Yeah.
Kasi mahalaga itong information na to, 1582 pa, meron ng observation ang mga Spanish chroniclers na there are two types of Filipinos pagdating. Shy pa yung ating participants, Ma'am Tim. Siguro pwede tayong
Okay,
magpatuloy.
let's go to the next. This is from Cruikshank, talking about how Filipinos unsubjected themselves, no? Autonomous Filipinos to the rule of the Spaniards, no? In 1776, by a Franciscan writing to the Franciscan Provincial about the Mount Isarog area, I chose this because this is in your area. Filipinos from the parishes of Lagunoy, do you know this place, Lagunoy? Purchased from the cimarrones, that's which they have for sale. Cimarrones are the wild people, in quotation, such as wax, meaning to say beeswax, that floor wax, abaca, and a bit of their subsistence crops, y el poco plantío que tienen para su manutención. For this reference from an 1832 document regarding trade between Aitas in the mountains and Kasiguran in the Baler-Palanan region, there are tame pagan Negritos who come to the population of Kasiguran to exchange wax for rice and clothing. So that, you see, meron tayong mga ebidensyang ganyan, no? Okay. Now, what do we want to do? We are not going to teach you how to write. No, you need another workshop for how to write. But we want you to, we try to impart to you what you could write and how you will be able to get this data that you hope to write as part of an ethnographic project. Okay, so can you do this, RV?
Yes. So ethnography, from the Greek word ethnos, meaning graphene, writing. So writing culture, a scientific description of the customs of individuals and cultures, recording and analysis using participant observation. Describing human culture is a craft. In our professional life, we continuously hone our skills until we are satisfied, ready to share our publish. Sure, scientific description, recording and analysis, customs, peoples, participant observation are some very important keywords in the study of its mojo. So let's pay attention to those keywords. And I will demonstrate, or we will demonstrate ethnography through the lens of our work. This module is divided into two parts. The main lecture itself and try to have a breakout workshop, but if that's not possible, then just have a learning assignment for our participants. We have listed several titles of articles we wrote, authored as illustrative examples, what an we are undertaking. So before we set sail, let us identify our anchorage. We drop here the locale, village community, and identify its various activities, annual production cycle. When we are done, we are now ready to see writing. So this is our invitation, and I hope that you sail together with us. Yes, Mom Chim?
Let's go. Now, this is the outline. RV just said that. So we talk about village community. What is a village community? Remember, Maria was saying something about small communities with that identities, similar things, sharing culture. Then the second part will be an annual production cycle, the subsistence of these small communities. No, then we try to make some analysis or what writing culture is all about, the methods that we wish uh, to learn. We try to make groupings, but I don't think there's enough time. It's better to listen and ask questions. You don't have to ask. You don't have to use your audio. You can write on the chat box. No? Okay, and please, if you have a question in the middle, unmute and say something to us. Now let's go.
Doc Chim,
Yeah.
yung breakout groups possible daw. Kaya lang, kailangan alam namin kung ilang minuto. Kasi automatic kasi yun eh. They will be distributed to the breakout groups and then come back after a certain number of minutes. That can be allowed by technology pero dapat definite kung gaano kahaba yung breakout session.
Sige, we'll decide later if we are able to finish this lecture. Yeah, we'll play it by ear. Okay. Now, this is the syllabus. I don't know, Joe, did you print the syllabus?
It was uploaded in the Google link of the participants.
So they maybe they didn't.
I hope they have read it, but it was uploaded. Kasi,
yeah, I suggest that they print it because then you can write on it and it's easier to read, no? But anyway, as I said,
off campus pa po kasi ngayon yung mga faculty members and they are on summer break.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sent in the Google. Thank you po.
Okay, so this is the list of undertaking, the list of readings, and then I put them into sets. Set 1, 2, 3 to 9. That's why the set corresponds to the 9 groups. 9 groups. Okay, so that is the set of readings. Then, if we cannot have a breakout group, you can do it outside of this webinar, and we will ask you what to do as a group, and we want you to submit something, no, as a group. Okay. Okay, here it is, no, and then it is not only the 9 sets, but there are other subsidiary readings if you want to read further. Now, this is the grouping that I made: the set 1, set 2, set 3, set 4, up to set 9, and the names are here. No, the names are here. I think this was been uploaded too, no? Right, Joe? Okay. Now, let's go to RV.
This is our definition of the village community. So generally, a village community is defined as a group of people living in a definite geographical area characterized by consciousness of kind, common lifestyles, and various intensive social interaction. As nouns, the difference between community and village is that community is a group sharing understanding, the same language, manners, tradition, and sea civilization, while village is a rural habitation of size, hamlet, town. So some of the terms that we familiarize ourselves, small land, small population, ili, barrio, sitio, barangay, while the features of village community consciousness, the role of neighbor, joint family, faith in religion, simplicity. I think it's also good to ask our participants,
The
ano ba yung
recording has stopped.
mga local terms na ginagamit and
Wait.
referring to the village community?
Are we? It says the recording stop. Joe, how is the situation?
I'm
I also
checking,
heard that.
I'm checking.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, let's go.
Let's continue po. So, yes, would you like to answer the question? Meron ba tayong mga local terms na ginagamit referring to village community? Like to answer our question. You may write on the chat box, pwede kong basahin. Talagang shy sila. Sige, padayon kung sa Ilonggo.
Padagos sa Bicol, Ma'am Arbs.
Anong salita ninyo?
Dagos.
Padagos?
Bicol. Dagos,
What?
Dagos.
Padagos. What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Dagos is tuloy lang, tuloy.
Okay. Parang agos. Padagos.
Padayon.
Padayon.
That's Bisayan. That's Bisayan.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now let me illustrate a village community. This, you have heard of colorum vehicles, but this is a colorum, a community that has been labeled by the Spaniards as colorum because they practice their own religion and they are not within the rule of the ecclesiastical control of the Philippines. And who are these people? Their descent. We are talking about the 19th century, no, maybe earlier, even in the 18th century. But this colorum term only came about in the 19th century. The colorum movement. The colorum movement is associated with millenarian movement, no, the Pulahanes, Lapi ang Malaya. So what are they? They are people who are the barrio people that we know now, who had their own culture, their own ways of believing and practicing their faith. They're peasants, no? They are peasants who became landless because of this encomienda system and this colonial rule on the country. So they banded together because they shared the same way of showing their faith. No, this is a syncretic Christianity practice. Now, how do they survive? Why do they survive until now? No, bakit itong mga tao hindi ito na nabubuwag? No, so there are many forms of resistance of this village community. They move there. So they organize themselves, they spread themselves. You see, originally from southern Leyte, then they cross the water going to Mindanao, Surigao, and they distributed themselves, living simple life, being peasants, being religious, being clean, having their own practices. Okay, now, what are other forms of their resistance? They also fought the Americans by the turn from the Spanish to American colonialism. The Americans also wanted to control them, but they resisted. No. Then what do we know about them now? They have their independent. I have been to Surigao in their community. They have independent school. Look at this. This is a the Visayan script, and they use the Visayan script, no? They use the Visayan script, and the community is so clean, and sharing food. Kids go to school and they eat together. They have their own kitchen as a group, and they share food together. No, and there's no private property. All people own the land, but they're given assignments of what to or where they could plant, other things like that. So this is one group of people. They call them Kolorum, but they call themselves other names. And you can find this. Many of these are in Mindanao, in Cebu, the Moncada colony. I don't know if you have heard about the Moncada colony in Cebu. In Mindanao, there are many groups like that. They want an alternative life. They do not want to be imposed. They don't want to be imposed. They don't want imposition from the outside. No, they're peasants, and they could live together, and they're usually relatives. So this is one type of village community. Okay, and when you talk about knowledge, hindi naman to nangyari, hindi lang naman sila nabuo ngayon lang, See, just make a sampling of this, and look, this is their fauna, and they could have a very in-depth knowledge of the crustaceans by this lobster, and they could make their own musical instruments. And this is not unique to them. In the coastal communities, you can find them. No, you can find them in the boundary between the city and the mountain. In between, they are there. No, they're peasants, they're landes, but they have the sense of community. Yeah. Somebody wanted to say something? RV?
Well, meron po akong mga nababasa sa chat box natin na yung nabigay nilang local terms ay yung sa village community, barrio, sitio, meron pang pulungan. So, meron gustong magkwento tungkol sa pulungan.
Pulong, P, K.
P-U, L-U. Man.
RV? Oh,
Yes
Isang
po.
comment, Art and Doc Chim, yung font medyo maliit, hindi masyadong mabasa kasi hindi naka-slideshow. But it can actually be increased yung size ng font. Pwede ma-increase sa
okay.
Sa baba yung control. If you can
There
increase
you
it a
go.
little bit, yan. Very good. Nababasa ko na. Kanina hindi ko mabasa eh. I even sent a message to Art. Thank you, Doc Chim.
No
Si
problem.
Doc Chim,
Yeah, RV.
pulungan. Sana may magkwento tungkol sa pulungan.
Pulungan, yeah?
Barrio, sitio, pulungan.
Ano ba yung pulungan?
Di ba nagtanong tayo earlier kung ano yung mga terms na ginagamit nila referring the village community or so merong mga sagot, barrio, sitio, and
Yeah.
one participant said pulungan.
Pulungan means a place of meeting kung saan nag-iipon-ipon ang mga tao.
Pulong.
Pulong, coming from pulong.
Pulong. Okay. But yeah, it's just a place, but there are no houses, people living in these houses. It's a site. It's only one site, no? Okay, so maybe later, much later, you can tell us. Or that's why we would like to do that research. Now, indigenous people, I think you know more than anybody else now after the lecture of Maria and Jesse, but I just want to give you just an overview of an example of an indigenous group, the Aita. The Aita is the language of the Aita belongs to the Sambalic languages, no? Sambalic languages, meaning say Abalen, Aita Ansi, Aita Mag-Indi, Sambal, Sambaltina. And they're here. If this were the if this were the crater of Mount Pinatubo, this area here is Zambales, and this is Pampanga, no? So Botolan Sambal, Tina here, Abalin here in Tarlac, and then you have Porac Mag-Ansi, Florida Blanca Mag-Indi, in Santa Juliana Mag-Ansi, and Abalin. Okay. There. Okay. Now, what is the village community? I would just show you some photographs. This is Sapang Uwak. It's also in Porac, Pampanga. Porac is very near Clark Air Base, no? And this is on a hill. So you see, it is not very much settled in a way that it is planned, no? Which is the ideal one in Sapang Uwak, no? Because you will find out in Camyas, this one, you see, parang meron kang linear arrangement of this village. And you notice this has been lived for